Hey guys, welcome to my channel and I hope you all are doing well. So today we are going to write some unit test cases for our React application. We are going to write some snapshot test cases and some test cases where we will test the mock functionality of our component. So I already have an app running. So this app was built by me in the last video. So you guys can go and check that video out. But I can show you a preview here. So it basically was an autocomplete where you can type user's name and you can move back and forth using the navigation keys, and you can just hit enter to refill the input. So that's the application. So now we are going to write some unit test case for this application, right? So let me go ahead and open a new terminal, right? So now because we are using CRA, create react application app, so in that case we already have JEST installed. You can see, it has React script test, and internally it uses JEST to do testing. So we are going to use that. We will and we already have two components. So two components, if you go to app.js, we have two components. First is user input, which is basically our input. I can show you that. Here, so which is our input, this one, and this is our user list, which you can see here. So let's start by writing some test cases for the user list, and then we will move to user input. All right. So I will go into the components and I will create a new file called userslist.test.js, and in that I'm basically going to import some methods which I need to write the test cases. So we'll basically start with this. So in order to write a test, you just have to do test. So for example, I just want to do a snapshot test. So what I'm going to do is renders user input, right? I'm going to provide a callback function, and in that callback function I'm going to create a snapshot of the user list component. All right, so how I'm going to do it is like this. So I'll go here, say const tree equal to renderer. So this renderer will be we will be importing it from the React test renderer, but yeah, I will elaborate on that in a bit. So renderer, and inside renderer.create I'm just going to call a user list function, user list component, and inside user list, so user list takes 4 props. The first one is the list of user. For now we are going to empty it. Then there is on select. What will happen if on select is basic, if you select a user, what will happen? So for right now I'm going to pass a dummy function, and then the is list visible. So if the list is visible or not, because it's kind of like a drop down. So for now we are just going to make it true. And current index. So current index is basically which item is selected right now. So for now we are just going to go 0 and 2 JSON. So it's going to render our component into a JSON, and then what I'm going to do is expect the tree to match snapshot. All right. So how snapshot testing works is something like this. So what basically happens, for the first time you will take a snapshot of your component, and then when the next time you will run the test, it will compare the previous snapshot with the new snapshot, and if they didn't match, then it's going to throw an error and the test will fail. So the concept behind is this. So for example, if you create a snapshot and in that some class is visible or some class was present, right, and it is not present in the new snapshot, then it will throw the error that it supposed to have a class. So we are going to test that out. So firstly foremost, we have to create a snapshot, and we have to import the renderer from import the renderer from React Test renderer. So I already have that installed, but you guys can go ahead and install this. So I'm going to put all of this information in the description so you guys can check out. So from the React Test renderer, we imported render, and now let's run our test cases. So run the test case, you just have to do yarn test inside a CRA application. Just hit yarn test, and it will run the test for you. So it's running the test. One failed. Okay, because I didn't imported the users list. So users list imported, save it. So yeah, so you can see one snapshot written here, right? And and you can see in the snapshot folder, if you go inside the snapshot folder, you can see it took a snapshot of a component, basically, how it will be rendered in the UI. So now let's do one thing. If I go in the user list and for some reasons I removed this role and hit save, so it's the test is running basically. Yeah, so you can see, you can see, so it's it says that it wants the role menu to be present, but it is not present there because because in the previous snapshot it was there. So by this you basically avoid any kind of alteration with your component by mistake. So if you deliberately want to remove role menu, for example this, and you want the test case the snapshot to be updated, what you have to do is you have to run yarn test double hyphen u. Hyphen u is basically tells the test command to update the snapshot. So if I run this now, then it will try to run the test. It's running the test, and now you can say one passed and it says one updated. And if you go inside the snapshot, you can see now it doesn't have the rule menu. So basically the purpose of unit test cases is that you're not removing anything or you're not modifying component unintentionally, right? So if by mistake you have removed something, snapshot testing will basically help you out to figure that out, so you don't introduce any unwanted bugs in your application. So this is the snapshot of our component when there is no users or nothing. So now let's type a snapshot test where we have the list. So basically this component takes a list of user, which is basically a array of string. So I'm just going to say Manoj Singh Negi, let's say Ross Geller, right? I just hit save. So now the test is running, and what basically it will do, it will create another snapshot. So if you go here, you can see the second snapshot, and you can see our list here. So now if I go to this component and remove the list, the test case will fail because the snapshot will not match the new snapshot, right? So yeah, that's another snapshot test case. So now let's move further, right? And let's create another snapshot where the is list visible is false. So basically list is list visible control this. So if you go to the snapshot, it controls this is active. So when the drop down is active, it basically shows up. And if it's not active, then it basically hides. So I'm just going to write a component where render user input. I'm just going to update as input when users list is provided. Render user input when is list visible is false. When is list visible is false, So in that case, the is active will not be visible, right? So here is active is visible, here is active is visible, but when the is list visible is false, then the list will not be visible, right? So we basically ensured that by writing a snapshot test case. So in case if we our component get modified, and this condition gets deleted for some reason, we will get to know when the test case will fail. All right. So now these are like three snapshot cases. Let's write some mock function case for this. So now when you click on any of the list item, for example, let me show you. So if I go here, localhost 3000, and if I click on matte black, then it basically pre-fills the user input. So we're going to test that. So we are going to write another test case. I'm just going to copy and paste this, and instead of rendering, I just say call on select when clicked on any item, right? So basically when a user clicks on any of the item, this on select function will get called. So for that, what we are going to do is we are going to create a mock function, const on select equal to jest.fn. So a mock function which we can track basically. So jest allows you to track the function, and instead of renderer, we are going to use render users list, right? And it will basically be same as this. So users list is visible true, right? Not, I don't want a snapshot, right? So I will remove this thing, right? And this render is basically imported from the testing library. So import render from at testing library React, and I think it comes pre-installed when you install a CRA, right? When you install a CRA application. So render, once the element is rendered, and this onSelect function will be sent here, passed here, and then there is another property we call a user event dot click. So user event basically help us to perform clicks or type or things like that. So you can type into the element and all that stuff. So click screen is basically what is being rendered right now. So screen dot get by text. So get by text is basically we will get text, we'll get the element on the screen, for example this element and this element by using this text. So what I am to say is where am I? User list, right? So what I'm going to say is user event dot click screen dot get by text Manoj Singh Negi, and text Manoj Singh Negi, and click on it. So when we click on this element, we expect the on select to have been called with this text. All right. So let me show you the component. So whenever we click, we call on select user, and user is basically a string, and which we are rendering in even in the HTML, even in the HTML, right? So when we click on this element, on select get called with that user, and the user is basically a string, the name of the user, and that's what we are checking. So when we click on Manoj Singh Negi, it should have the on select to have been called with Manoj Singh Negi, right? So there is an error, screen.get by text is not a function because screen is not imported. The screen is also imported from the at testing library React. We just import it, and let's see if our test cases passes or not. So you can see it gets passed. So for example, if I want to fail it, I can say here Ross Geller. So what I'm saying is when you click on Manoj Singh Negi, the onSelect function should have been called with Ross Geller, but that will not happen, and that's why this will fail. So you can see, expected Ross Geller, but received Manoj Singh Negi, right? Because we expected that it should return Ross Geller, but that was not the case, right? So I'll just fix this. So now if anytime you make a modification in your component and if the behavior changes, if for say you click on one element and then we return the onSelect function with other username, then it will fail, which is what we wanted, right? So this is it for this component, the user list component. Now let's move to user input component. I can basically give you an overview of user input component. It takes three things: set user, value, and on key down. So value is basically the value of the input, current value of the input. The set user is basically it updated the user outside this component. So the user is so whenever we type anything, we basically keep a state in the app.js here username, set username, and then we pass this set username as a set user, and basically it updates the value. So we basically created a controlled input, and now at last there is on key down. So on key down is used for this. Let me show you. So for example, if I type M, then I can on key down, I can just move between these, and if I hit enter, it basically select the selected user input. So that is why we have this on key down, right? So now let's start by writing a snapshot test for this. So let's go in the component, create a new file called user input.test.js, and now let's copy a snapshot test from here. Here, right? So we don't need these three things, so let's remove them. So instead of users list, we need user input, right? So we don't need user list, and it has three props: value. So by default, I'm going to give the value as Ross. On key down, I'm going to pass an empty function for now, and set user as an empty function again. All right, and I'm going to render it. Render the snapshot, and it basically rendered the snapshot for me. So let's go ahead and check it out. So here is a snapshot: value Ross, placeholder search users. Yeah, and you can see empty function here, on key down and on key change, on change and on key down. So if now I go, all right. So this is the snapshot when you render an a normal input, right? And now let's write another function where we basically test if the on change function is getting called, and this should be on change, right? This should be on change. So now call set user when user type in the input, right? And instead of this, we are going to render it, right? We are going to normally render it. So firstly we'll create an empty function, a mock function, and then we are just going to render the component, render the user input, right? And value should be empty. User input, value, render it, and then user event screen dot get by placeholder. So there is another method by which we can get the element, and that is by placeholder. So our input has a placeholder of search users, and inside that we are going to type m. So we just okay, and it should be user event dot type. So we are basically typing m inside our input, and what we want to do is we expect the set user to have been called with m, right? Because whenever there is on change, whatever is the value inside the input, we are just going to call set user with that value, e-target.value, right? So this makes sense, because if I type m, it should call a set user with m. There has been an error, I'm not sure why. Let's just restart the test. So it's basically going to call set user. All right, and there is one thing that we missed out, is we should pass the set user here, and I don't, okay, it should be set user, right? Yeah, it should be set user, and it should be passed here. So let's see if this test works out or not. And yeah, you can see no number of call. Let me check our component. Set user, right? Set user. Set user jest.fn user input value on key down set user. So yeah, you can see the test cases is passed. So now, so let's write some more unit test cases, okay? So what we are going to do is we're going to create another test case where we will check if the navigation keys are pressed, the key down function is called, because whenever the navigation keys get pressed, then you have to call the on key down, so the app.js can update the the current index, or if it's enter, set the username. So call set user instead of call on key down when user press navigation key, right? So let's name it on key down and pass the on key down here. Onward is passed empty here. And now to dispatch a key down event, we have to use fire event. So instead of this, and on key down should have been like this, and just should be to have been called, right? And right, so we are ensuring whenever there is a on key down event, this on key down function should have been called. Okay, we are not checking for the argument now. So instead of this, what we need is fire event, which is which we import from the React test library. Fire event dot key down, again screen dot get by placeholder, and the placeholder is search user. So we get the input element, and then we dispatch a key code of 38. Okay, so 38 is basically the key. So we are basically, what we are doing, we are just passing a key code 38, and then checking if the key down on key down function have been called or not. So you can see, this is passed. So the key down is working. So in our case, if for example we remove this, or what we can do is, if we go inside this component and we remove this on key down and save it, and if we run the test again, it should fail. So you can see, expected number of calls 1 or greater than 1, but received number of calls 0, because on key down is not getting called, right? So that is good. Now let's write our last test case, which is on press on enter press. So call on key down when user press enter. So the whole function will stay same. We just change the key code to 13. Right, and yeah, you can see the test cases passed. So yeah, I mean guys, this was writing unit test cases for your React application. It is a pretty pretty simple guide. So we written some snapshot test cases, and we also written some mock test cases for clicks and type. So I think this should help you in writing test cases for your next React application. There are other test cases technique like testing the state change, and testing the reducers, but we are not going to cover that in this video. I'm going to put all of the material that we discussed here, all of the packages and the repo to this code in the description, so please go and check that out. And yeah guys, let me know what do you think about this video, and yeah, till the next video, have fun.